Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Coaching Uncovered podcast. My name is Chris Berry, and I'm going to be your host for today. Joining us, we have Shanda Kohtz. Shanda, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Chris. How are you doing?
I'm doing amazing, enjoying my Thursday morning and excited to go ahead and chat a little bit more about the stuff you're doing. I know we've had a couple of conversations about obviously good water, good life, everything like that. And I'm excited for everyone else to know a little bit more about it. So before we kind of get into the details of, what your journey's been like, what your day to day is, things along those lines, I would love to start off of just your story and kind of what you do with Good Water, Good Life.
I am an educator of, believe it or not, going on 25 years. And so that has truly been my passion, is education. And then I ended up actually I didn't ever think about coaching, but then the opportunity came around and I said, well, sounds exciting. Why not? So not only did I end up going into teaching, I went into coaching as well. And I absolutely loved coaching. It is very fulfilling. And so it was just something I had never really even thought about. And so then I ended up becoming an educator and a coach. And I just kind of really enjoyed it so much to the point where when I came across this amazing water, I said, okay, I want to educate people on this water. And then as the years have passed, then it's just been that, again, that transformation where I'm like, okay, I'm a coach too. So now I want to be able to coach others to do what I've been doing as basically an educator for the last 6 years now. So now I'm just doing it on a different level. And but it's so fun to see how it's like, okay, I started out as a teacher, and then I also ended up becoming a coach. And then I've taken it now through the business aspect of being a teacher and educator, and then now transitioning to being a coach as well.
Yeah.
So, and to me, I mean, and this is where the mindset comes in. It's like, when people think sales, they think, how many times have you heard somebody say, I'm not a salesperson? Have you heard that just a few times?
Just a few, yes.
And I never even thought about it in relation to teaching and coaching when I was actually in the classroom and in the gym, working with, these students, and being all this time, all these years, I've been a salesperson, not realizing it. And I'm like, this whole time I've been trying to get these kids or these students to buy in to what I have to teach them, right? And so it's all buy-in. And I never really realized that until I started my business, Good Water, Good Life. So that has probably been the biggest mindset shift overall.
Yeah, for
It's
sure.
realizing
Yeah, and that's even, well, you probably, we spoke about it. My background is sales. And a lot of coaches that I work with, they just have this aversion to sales because they don't want to take people's money or anything like that. And it has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with sales as service. And if you go ahead and you take someone's money, right? But you go ahead and you deliver so much more value back into the world and everything. And actually, what's funny, most people don't know this. I don't know if I actually have told you this either. Do you know what TD Coach stands for?
touchdown. Did you
Nope.
say TD?
TD. Yep, exactly. So TD Coach, my company, the TD actually stands for $1 trillion coach. And the purpose behind $1 trillion and why I made it is because I see sales as simply a transaction of value in exchange for money. And my goal is to have it where we have coaches that teach all of these different things And we go ahead and we sell over $1 trillion worth of coaching programs, of courses, whatever it may be. And with that said, keeping that same sort of frame in mind, that we've been able to deliver at least $1 trillion worth of value into the world. So that's the first target and goal. And then from then, as we hit that target, then it's okay. Now let's get to $1 trillion in a year, or however long it is, you know. So that's the goal behind it. And I know I'm getting excited about. One last thing I do want to add on the sales piece is sales is everything. Like, that's what people don't realize. You even said it too. Like, when not only in the fact of selling the person to come into your coaching program, you need to sell your students. You need to sell the clients that you work with every single day, why they need to show up, why they need to do these things, why it's so important, because this is their goal. This is what they want to do. And whether it be in the coaching realm like that, whether it is selling a girl to go on a date with you, whether it be selling a girl to marry you, whether it be selling your teacher why they should like you more, so therefore they give you a better grade in class, whether it be selling your parents about why they should go ahead and give you X, Y, and Z as a kid. Like, there's all of these different things, and sales is everything. And so I just get an ear-to-ear grin when I hear you say that piece on sales, because that's the foundation that I see it as, you know. So as you can tell, I get excited about sales.
Yeah. Well, and I think another big piece of it, which I have found out, is the consistency piece.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the consistency is, okay, you can do something once in a while, but what's going to get you results?
Yep.
The consistency is what's going to get you the results.
Yep.
So, and even as a teacher, I'm like, and I say this because students, they want consistency. Because again, what does consistency bring you? Consistency brings clarity. And when you're clear on something, then that's what ultimately is going to make you in the long run successful.
Yeah.
And so that's something that, to me, that's a huge piece, is consistency, because in so many aspects to life, because I'm like, again, without it, you're not going to see the same results.
Yep. Absolutely. Very true. Coming back to how we got here, obviously, I know in the beginning you're talking about sales is so pivotal and everything that you're doing with Good Water, Good Life. Could you explain a little bit more? What is Good Water, Good Life, and why are you so passionate about spreading this message?
Being that I coached, and I'll back up a little bit, because I played a lot of sports growing up. So if I were to say, yeah, my life, my life growing up consisted of going to school and playing sports. When I look back at my life, or early on in my life, that's what I would say: going to school and playing sports. And then I went on to play basketball at the collegiate level. And I also remember the times where, when I played basketball specifically, because of the high impact sport that it is, there would be a few times when I would come home from basketball practice in high school, as well as in college, when I'd be and that would be when I'd get back to the dorm room, when I would have a migraine headache. And so, because of, again, the high impact sport that it is, and I played in college, I played post, and I'm only 5'8", but I'm thick. And so, being that I'm at a decent height, and I also am thick, I could play down, I could handle playing down low by the basket area, but still, you imagine how much that just wear and tear takes on your body. And so, again, those migraine headaches were a key part of dehydration. Had I been hydrated, then would I have had those migraine headaches? Okay. Yeah. So that was something that was always, like, okay, I know when I played, that's when I would get these migraine headaches, because when I stopped playing basketball, I didn't have migraine headaches anymore. But health and wellness in that regard, I mean, it's always been a big part to me personally is that I've always tried to take good care of my body. And so then after graduating, I became a coach along with teaching. But again, I focused more on the like fundamentals of the different sports that I coached. Okay. I didn't really focus on so much the like nutrition aspect. And I taught junior high, secondary level. So a lot of times the nutrition is not it's just not stressed as much at that level as it becomes more of an emphasis in high school and in college, where you have that maybe trainer that focuses on helps athletes on their nutrition and diet, all that type of thing. So that was just not a piece that was really I guess present when I was coaching. And so it wasn't until 6 years ago when my nail lady introduced me to this Kangen water that I didn't really think anything of it, but still it's the fact that I sat down to get my nails done and she knew I only drank water. And if she wouldn't have known that, then would she have offered me this water, right? But she knew, again, I drink water, and so she wasn't going to offer me a Coke. and and so I had my glass of Kangen water, and after getting my nails done, I left the nail salon and I didn't think anything of it. Water's water, right? But again, it's a mentality. I'm not a salesperson, right? No, you are a salesperson. So it's, again, it's the same thing. It's like, didn't think anything of it until 3 months later when I went into a juice bar and I saw that they had that water that my nail lady introduced me to. And I saw the name Kangen water. And I said, how do I get this water? So I asked, and they told me how to get the water. I got my gallon-sized bag of water, and I knew that I could get refills. So when I was ready for refills, I could come back in and get my water refills. And then that's when it just, again, that shift happened. And I started noticing how this water was helping me personally with my digestional issues, digestional issues. And a lot of times we don't want to talk about those things. We don't want to put those things out in the open. And so we just deal with it. But I know how it helped me. And therefore I said, you know what? I want to start giving this water to my children so they can also be drinking it. And then I saw how the water helped my son. When we experience things like that, Chris, it to me is just, you're experiencing something and it's speaking for itself.
Mm-hmm.
And
What,
so
one,
that's exactly what happened.
one question I do have. So when you say it helped your son, like what things were like so dramatic and helped him?
We both were, and I say this because we both were very constipated. And why some of us are more, or why some of us are constipated and why some of us we don't have those same types of issues, I guess you could say. I mean, our bodies are just how they're designed, right? And so some of us experience issues that others don't. And my son and I just experienced the same type of issues with being very constipated. And so when I obviously experienced regular, and I say this because some people don't want to talk about these things, but when you're backed up and then you're not backed up, it's a great feeling.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's the same thing with my son. we were both frustrated because we just were very, very constipated. And then when we weren't constipated and we were having those regular bowel movements, then it's one of those things where it makes me go back to and I don't know if I shared this with you or not, but it goes back to this boy who shared his testimonial with drinking Kangen water, and he was autistic, and somebody asked him, how did you feel before drinking this water? And he said, I felt stuck. And then the question was asked, how did you feel after drinking this water over a period of time? Then it's like, okay, how do you feel? How do you feel now? And he said, I feel free. I think about that. And then I think about my son and my situation. And I think the exact same thing. I felt stuck. Just in another way, I felt stuck. And then when you start having regular bowel movements, it's the same thing. You feel free.
That's true. So you obviously had this transformation, right, within yourself of getting access to this water. You talked about your son, everything like that. You started getting into this and everything. Fill me in a little bit more on kind of the piece of the education that you run through with people. Like, how do you open their eyes? How do you teach these people, like, look, this is what you're missing? Like, what do you do in order to do that?
Testimonials are so impactful. Because again, I remember that moment when my son and I were at a water demonstration, and he was, I think, around 8 years old at the time. And sitting there in that room, and just those moments you remember when and I'd already seen a water demonstration, but then I took him to see a water demonstration. And I remember him sitting there in that room, raising his hand as an 8-year-old, around that age, 8-year-old boy. Your mom is sitting there seeing you take the initiative to share your experience is very, very touching, very moving. And so young too. And he shared his experience with those people in the room. That's why I said testimonials are so impactful. And when you share those, when you go out into, and I say networking, when you are out there networking and people see or they hear you share those testimonials, that's what gets them to take action.
Yeah.
Hearing somebody else's experience. Because I've found that I can share my experience with people, but until people hear other people's experiences, then it's a game changer.
Absolutely. So you have the testimonials. This is one of the biggest things that obviously gets people to understand, wow, this could become a reality for me, or how much am I missing? How are you getting in front of these people? Because that's one of the biggest things that, a lot of coaches inside of our community, people I come in interactions with, people I work with, they don't have an understanding of, how do I get more people? How do I generate the leads? How do I get business into my coaching business? So what are the ways that you go about with Good Water, Good Life into doing that?
Get out.
Okay.
Get out into the community. And when I say get out into the community, go visit businesses. Just go introduce yourself. You can always invite them as business owners, extend the invitation. And this is what I do a lot of, Chris. I extend the invitation to come network, because I have experienced, for myself personally, I've experienced the impact that networking has, whether it be in person or on Zoom, it doesn't it doesn't matter depending on your situation, if it's in person or on Zoom, either one works. But again, you're inviting them to a networking group setting. So it can be either or. I typically invite, if possible, I typically invite them to in-person networking events, because to me personally, face-to-face interaction in person has more power behind it than through a virtual Zoom. Not to say that they both can be impactful, but there's something about the face-to-face, and not only that, when you see them weekly, that has more impact as well than just seeing them once, this month. Maybe 2 months later, you might see them again and be on virtual Zoom. So that goes back to the consistency piece.
Yeah.
You've
Consistency,
got to be consistent.
getting in front of them, inviting them to network. And is it, obviously, I'm assuming, is it just anyone for you, or is it ideally business owners and having some sort of like a business networking, or how exactly? Two questions, actually. First one is that of
Okay.
what's the networking opportunity that you're presenting to them, one, and then number two, how are you finding these business owners? What are you doing in order to get in front of these people and offer this networking piece to them?
I am part of the local chamber in my community. And so I had November will be 6 years when I had made that commitment to joining the local chamber. And so now that I have committed to the chamber, I do my best to become as involved as possible. And that may be attending ribbon cuttings, because ribbon cuttings happen for new businesses, and new businesses are looking for business. And so I am very intentional about doing my best to attend the ribbon cuttings. That opens up that door to introduce yourself and who you are and what you do. And then that again also leads to the invite. So we have a networking group that is part of the local chamber. Would you like to be invited to it? And then based on their response, I will say typically it's a yes. I don't know that I don't know that I recall a business owner saying, no, I'm not interested in networking. So, but once I've extended the invitation of, would you be interested in networking within the HEB? Well, this is the HEB chamber that I'm part of, the local chamber. And then once they say yes, then that's where I will email them the details of the networking meeting. And then I follow up with them because they're busy, right? We're all busy. So that's another key piece, is the follow-up. So for those who have shown up, great. I'll usually thank them for attending the meeting. Great to see you at the meeting today. I look forward to seeing you next week. And if they haven't shown up, then that's where I will go in and just email them and say, I look forward to seeing you at a networking meeting next week. They didn't show up yet, but they still have it on their radar. They just haven't make it work with their schedule. But again, you're trying to bring the community together. And then that's where we can all learn about each other and what we're doing within the community.
Understood. And these networking events that you host, obviously, I know you explained how, hey, it's the subset of the chamber. We each have a way to go ahead and network. On the events themselves, how are you setting up these events? Is it just you're renting out some sort of space and then everyone comes and they just talk for 2 hours, or are there presentations you're giving? What does that look like?
So the networking event itself, what does that look like?
Yeah, the one that you are hosting. So to make sure I'm following, you have the Chamber of Commerce that you're a part of. You use that to network, talk to people, and then you're like, hey, Bobby from the Chamber of Commerce, I actually have this other group over here where we just have business owners. We're looking to network. I'd love for you to join. Would you like me to send you the information? Yes, Bobby says he comes. Bobby comes to the event, your event that you're hosting over here. What happens in that event? How do you set it up? Everything.
So because it is part of a chamber, we actually elect a new leadership every 6 months.
Okay.
So right now we just are in a period in October where we just had 3 new leaders come on. So we have for starting in October, we have a new chair, co-chair, and secretary.
Okay.
So I am not currently part of that leadership, but they basically run the meetings right now. Now I've been a chair, I've been a co-chair, I've been a secretary in the meeting or in the group, but I'm just not part of those positions at this point in time. But typically the layout of the event, do you want me to go into the layout?
Yeah, I'd be curious of just not necessarily every single small detail, but just at a high level, what goes on, how do you set it up and everything?
Okay. Typically the first 30 minutes is networking. So, and that's the other thing too, which I try to really emphasize is that the value of networking, if possible, get there 20 to 30 minutes early. Or if you can't get there 20 to 30 minutes early, then see if you can at least stay 15, maybe 20 minutes after the meeting. I always look at it like a party. You know, when you go to a party, when's the best time at a party? Is it at the beginning or is it at the end? What do you think, Chris?
Typically the end.
I was hoping you would say that.
Yeah. I had a 50-50 chance. So
Yeah.
no, I'm kidding. But the end.
So would you agree though?
Absolutely.
It's called the after party, right?
Yep.
So when I go to these ribbon cuttings, guess what? I stay till the end because that's where I'm able to network. I'm able to build the connection and then extend the invite. But I am making sure that I can, if possible, I can stay till the end because it keeps going. Everybody else has left and I'm still there. So it's the same thing with networking. If you can stay after, because not only that, when you're there at the meeting, you're usually more so listening. You're not always engaging in a networking meeting because typically when you go to a meeting, you have a spotlight speaker. So they're speaking 10, 15 minutes typically. And then you do also in that time, the 30-second pitches, right? So that's why I say again, if you can stay after, then you've heard everybody's 30-second pitch. Before the meeting, you don't know a lot about some of the people, especially the guests that are coming, right? So if you stay after, you've already heard their 30-second pitches, you then can know who you want to be more intentional about engaging with and getting into those conversations and seeing if you can then go ahead and line up a one-to-one. Because ultimately the one-to-one is going to lead to you getting to know each other better and then also potentially seeing how you can be synergy partners, potentially. And ultimately that's the goal. I want to know how I can refer you, and I hope too, in return, you know how to refer me.
That's really interesting. Because it's not something, obviously, as you know, my background is, yes, in person, but a lot of the online space. And it's cool seeing the aspect of integrating the Chamber of Commerce and the networking events. Because as you said, yes, online's great. I mean, we're talking online. We wouldn't have the chance to meet if it weren't for the online space.
Right.
There's so much value that comes of being able to look someone in the eye, shake their hand, see them in person, see the mannerisms. And not only, and what I also find about, yes, especially in these environments, it is maybe more business, but you also have a chance to actually get to know the person for who they are, not just like interactional, transactional, and maybe these sort of things aren't the best scenario, but at least I'll call myself guilty sometimes. You get on calls, like, okay, yep, boom, 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 then we do this. Okay, goodbye. So great seeing you. Bye. You don't get to really know the person as much to the other degree. So.
Yeah. And you said, I mean, that handshake, I mean, that's important, or the hug.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that, and I, that's where that, I mean, I'm going to tell you what happened last week. Cause I was at the meeting last week, I ended up being the spotlight speaker. And I had a gentleman who I met through this networking group. And he now lives in South Carolina. So he actually made a trip. He flew here last week on the day I was speaking, and he came to the networking meeting that initially is where we met. But I mean, it's only because of our relationship, though, that he came to the meeting to support me. But he also, at the same time, got to visit some of the other members that are still part of the group. But again, the impact that has, because I know that he was there to support me.
Yeah.
And it was just a quick trip here to Texas. And but he could have done other things with his time here. And he made the time to come to the meeting.
Absolutely. The small actions, I mean, in that case, not as small, but the actions that you do speak volumes as to care about a person, relationships, all of that. Absolutely. So
Yep.
I just realized what time it was too. I'm shocked. I feel like last time we spoke too, I was like, wait, hold on. How in the world has it been this long in a sense? So this has been amazing. And it has been awesome, especially this Chamber of Commerce thing and the way that you generate this has been really insightful. And I appreciate you sharing that with us. As we kind of begin to go ahead and wrap up, for anybody that is interested in learning more about good water, good life, anybody that wants to know, maybe go ahead and get one of the machines to go ahead and have this transformation that you obviously described, whether it be just asking you questions about it or just connecting with you as a whole. What is the best way for anybody listening or watching to get a hold and get in contact with you?
I generally am found through Google Maps.
Okay.
So that's one way, through Google Maps. If they just plug in, well, not knowing, but for those who are on, they can put good water, good life in the Google Maps search, and then that will take them to my phone number and my website and way of contacting me. So really just putting in my business name, Good Water, Good Life, into Google, it gives them all the information right there.
Okay.
And then my
Awesome.
business email is there as well.
Perfect. Okay. So once again, Good Water, Good Life on Google Maps, and you'll find all of the information. Shanda, it has been awesome as always. Thank you very much for joining us on this episode of the Coaching Uncovered podcast.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So everyone, I hope that you enjoyed this episode of the podcast as much as I did. It was awesome to obviously hear Shanda's whole background about, good water, good life, what she's doing, how transformational it was, something what we think is simple as water, but really how important it is for us and everything that we do. But then also the aspect of how is she generating leads? It's not the traditional way that I know I have done it in the online space. And it has been super, super insightful. You could probably hear me like, I'm here like, oh, really? Tell me about this, tell me about that. And I'm taking notes myself. So I hope that you guys found as much value that I did. If you are not subscribed, please make sure that you subscribe, you download the episode, and stay tuned for future episodes of the Coaching Uncovered podcast.